So, have you ever wondered what charisma is? This it factor that stars have. I'm here to answer this question. Hi, I'm Philip, and I'm here to help you get better at public speaking. Charisma is something that we think others just possess, and I want to tell you a quick story about this. Marilyn Monroe, one of the most famous, most iconic actresses of the 20th century, wanted to prove a point to a photographer. And they went together in a subway. There, she wanted to prove to him that she could ride the subway and nobody would recognize her. It's weird, right? How is it possible that one of the most iconic actresses of all time would not be recognized in a subway? Imagine Barack Obama going in the subway. Everybody would recognize him right away. Well, she wore a headscarf with plain clothes and she went into the subway and the photographer couldn't believe it. Nobody recognized her. And then she winked at him and she took off her hair scarf and she kind of did this with her hair and she smiled. And then suddenly the first person recognized her. Everybody around her recognized her. And suddenly the whole subway train was swarming to get a touch of her. She had to be rescued and it took her several minutes before she and the photographer could reunite. So, what does that story tell us? It tells us that charisma is not something you just possess. It's something you can learn. It's a skill you can turn off and turn on at any moment. Well, charisma is a bit difficult to define, so if we don't know what it is, the first thing we'll look for is on Google. And if we Google this definition on Google, we'll get that Google tells us that charisma is a certain charm or attractiveness that can inspire devotion in others. So that's interesting because it tells us that charisma has something to do with following. That someone is a leader and others want to follow them. So this is this devotion. So that's a very interesting point. But this charm, what is it comprised of? And this is not really helpful, this definition. So if we go to the academic literature, we'll find that charisma is comprised of two factors. The first one is power, and the second one is affability. Power and affability. And this is really important because if you look at any real advice for example, how to win friends and influence people, the thing you'll hear the most is be nice to people, be interested, have interesting questions to ask them. And that's all well and good, but the core component of charisma is power. And this power is defined, in this case, as the ability to lead others and a strength of presence. You know, every charismatic person, you'll hear reports about them, they have this presence. I feel like I'm the only person when I'm with them, like I'm the center of the world, their full attention. And that is this presence. What this is, how you can develop it, we'll go into more detail in other videos, but a core thing here is also confidence. If you exude confidence, you have power, you have a presence. And it can also be just perceived power, because sometimes you are not in a position where you have power over others, because you're not in the same organization. So this is important, it's power or perceived power. The second part is affability. Now, affability is something very interesting. In this case, it means being pleasant and approachable. And that means that you're authentic. That means when others talk to you and you feel an emotion, you will just tell them if you're angry, or if you're happy, you'll show that as well. And you're very open to people, you'll listen intently. Those are the basic characteristics of someone that's affable. And this is a very general term. And I want to distinguish something here, which is very important. So you can't be charismatic without being likable. Now you may say, well, I know people who are charismatic and I don't like them. Well, case in point, take Hitler or Stalin. Very charismatic, but not really likable characters. But they just have this authoritative charisma where you know this person is the leader. But the charisma I'm talking about is more in the real world. The charisma that everybody can exude in everyday life. And in that case, you have to be likable. Otherwise, it's very difficult for you to have a charismatic presence. Now, I know this sounds very general, very cliche, that charisma is sort of this mix of being warm and friendly and also being self-confident. But it's the interplay of multiple things that's important here. So, the key takeaway is the charisma is a skill that you can learn, and when you possess this skill, others want to follow you. Charisma is comprised of two things: power and affability. And what those are in detail and what behaviors charismatic people exude, we'll talk about that in another video. For now, I want to thank you. If you're unsubscribed, you can subscribe, and every new subscriber gets the chance. Just send me a 5-minute video and I'll give you my feedback on the presentation style, what your style is, what you could work on. That'd be lovely. Also, in the description, you have a link to my blog post on this, which goes a bit more in depth into this topic. You have a link to a book I can recommend on this. It's called The Charisma Myth by Olivia Fox Cobain. And yeah, thank you for watching, and I'll see you again next time.